Hello and good afternoon friends, welcome once again to CEC EduSet live lecture. Dear friends, as you know that we are carrying a series on cancer, and with the help of this very topic we are trying to aware you that how seriously you should take this disease. So for this we have again a very good expert with us, that is we would firstly welcome our guest today, Dr. Rajesh Jain. He is a cancer surgeon, and I hope that through today's lecture we are going to get a deep insight into this very topic which we call cancer. So first of all, again I would like to welcome our guest, Dr. Rajesh Jain. Dr. Jain, welcome to the EduSet lecture, and I hope that all the viewers, all the students who might be watching us right now would be benefited from this particular lecture. So sir, the term cancer, whenever we hear this word cancer, we feel that we are blown out because there is a general conception, misconception, yes, this disease is very, very dangerous. What is your say on this?
See, cancer, everybody knows there is a disease called cancer. Cancer we see in movies also, we read in magazines also. But most of the people of our country, or students also, of higher education also, they don't know exactly what disease it is. So we have to first understand what disease basically it is. So our body is made up of millions and billions of cells, and the cells keeps on dividing. All the cells in our organ keeps on dividing, and when they divide, they, like there is one cell that becomes 2, then 4, then 8, so on and so forth. But a time comes when there is break in this division, and after the division stops, the cells stops growing and the old cell dies and new cells comes into play. So the whole system in our body, human body, is a dynamic system in which cells keep on dividing, they stop dividing at a point, new cells comes, the new cells keep on dividing, again they die, again new cells come, they keep on dividing. So cells are being made and they are destroyed at the same time. In cancer what happens, the division of the cells are uninterrupted. So the new cells keep on coming, the cells keep on dividing, they don't die, the division doesn't end. And you can imagine what will happen. The process starts in any particular organ, say for example starts in breast or say lung, wherever it starts. The division of cell is uninterrupted and they keep on dividing, the breaks are failed. So there is accumulation of more and more billions and millions of number of cells, and ultimately that organ and then other organs of the body, they cannot cope up with the number of cells which are there. And the process starts in one organ and then it spreads to the neighboring organ by direct extension, but at the same time it spreads by lymphatics and spreads by blood vessels to other organs also. So these malignant cells, as we call it, cancer is technically known as malignancy, and the cancer cells which are dividing uninterruptedly, they are called malignant cells. So these malignant cells from one organ travel to other organs of the body and the disease spreads to other organs. In the other organ the same phenomenon starts, uninterrupted growth. So the organ wherever the things have gone, they cannot manage such big number of cells, and ultimately the organ fails and the patient dies. This is the basic understanding of the cancer at cellular level. So that is what cancer is actually.
Sometimes we have also heard that cancer are the growth of the abnormal cells. Is it so? Because human body is made of cells, then what are the abnormal cells when we talk about cancer?
See, no cancer cell is normal. So whenever there is a cancer cell which is an abnormal cell, it is called abnormal because the cell looks like abnormal under microscope. They have got a big sized nucleus. The cells have got hyperchromatic nucleus. The nucleus is more dark, and the most important point about these cells are that these cells have capacity to divide. So that's the problem of these cells, and their capacity to catch to the blood vessels, their capacity to spread to the other organs, and that's how they are abnormal.
That was all about the abnormality. Now if we go towards the type of cancers, if we talk about the various types of cancers as we have seen or we have heard about that both males and females are caught by these type of cancer. So what are the different types of cancer if we talk about alone, independently among males and females?
See, basically and technically there are thousands types of cancers. No organ in our body is immune to cancer. and no person on earth is immune to cancer. Basically, our organs in the body are of two types of organs. One is solid organs, like we have got brain, we have got bones, we have got lungs, kidney, liver, various organs are there in our body. So solid organs are there, and if the organs are solid organs are involved by cancer process, we call it a solid cancer. At the same time, we have got liquid organs in our body, which is basically there are two types of liquids which circulate in our body. One is blood, we call it blood cancer, and one is lymph, we call it lymph cancer or lymphoma. So types of cancer basically are two, one is solid cancer and one is liquid cancer. So solid cancers are generally known as organ cancers like breast cancer or lung cancer, depending on the organ from where they are, the process starts. And liquid cancers are known as blood cancer or leukemia, that is one type of liquid cancer, and other type of liquid cancer is lymphoma. It's again a type of blood cancer. So these are basic types. Among solid cancers, which are more common, solid cancers are more prevalent. Among solid cancers, we have got basically two varieties. One is called carcinoma. It is commonest type of cancer. You probably also know. One is carcinoma and other is sarcoma. So our body is made up of organs, tissues and cells. So a lot of cells makes a tissue, lot of tissue makes organ, and lots of organ combined together makes system, like nervous system, gastrointestinal system or urinary system. So at the level of the organ and tissues, what happens, there are certain cells which lines the structures. They are called epithelial cells. Now these epithelial cells, if give rise to cancer, these are called carcinomas. And there are certain supporting cells in our body which supports the epithelium cells. Like support cells are like some connective tissue cells are there, some cartilages are there, some bones are there. So the cancers which arise from epithelium, as I told you, is a carcinoma, and the cancers which arise from supporting cells are called sarcoma. Sarcoma are the cells which generally spreads through blood vessels, and carcinoma generally spreads to lymphatics. So these are the two types of solid cancers. So in general, these are types of cancer.
So these were the part which you explained. But if you talk in the common man's term, what are those common cancers which are most talked about in India?
Question. This we are talking about the common cancers, and the type of cancers are like solid cancers are common, and they are called by the name of the organ from which they derive. Say they like for example lung cancer. Lung cancer is the commonest cause of death from cancer. If a person dies of cancer, so the commonest cause of cancer related death is lung cancer throughout the world. In our country also, lung cancer is the commonest cause of death of cancer. But like depending on the organ, there can be breast cancer, there can be bone cancer, there can be brain cancer, there can be kidney cancer. So these are the cancer depending on the organs. If you talk of male and female, in males the common cancers are, considering our country, if we see, male common cancers are oral cancers. The cancers because of some habits, tobacco habits, chewing habits, etc. So we've got more common cancers in oral cavity, that is mouth cancer. They again have subtypes like tongue cancer, and you've got cancer of jaw, you've got cancer of palate, you've got cancer of soft palate or hard palate, you've got cancer of lip. So various substructures are there inside our oral cavity. As a whole, they are called oral cancer, tobacco related cancers, oral cancer, and they are very common cancers in our country. Other common cancers are like in females, you've got breast cancer, you have got cancer of cervix, which is one of the commonest cancer in rural population in our country. Cervix is a part of uterus, is the lowermost part of the uterus, and that is cervical cancer as we call it. And cancer of the lung is again very common. We have got common cancers like cancers of stomach is also common, especially in southern India. We have got cancer of lung, cancer of stomach. Then we have got throat cancer, very common, like cancer of the voice box called laryngeal cancers. Then we have got pharyngeal cancers. So these are the common cancers which we deal in our day-to-day practice.
If we say that yes, cancer is a burden in India, could we say that because it is a disease which we the Indians fight more of, because in every two to third house we hear that the person has died because of cancer or is suffering from the cancer. Could we say that?
Yeah. See, if you remember your childhood, then so we used to hear that somebody in the village or somebody in the town has died of cancer. But as on today, we keep on hearing that somebody related to us has cancer. Almost everybody's family, distant relatives, one of them is suffering from cancer. So cancer is on rise. It is a burden. It is a burning thing in India now. Cancer, the incidence of cancer has increased. The prevalence of cancer has increased by manifold. So that is how. Now, if you talk of burden of cancer in India, we have got data. Again, let me make it very clear, whatever data we have got, these are the data are the cases which are registered under cancer registry, and the data are collected. In country like India, where most of the people live in villages and most of the people don't come to tertiary centers for treatment, they don't have access to this data collection. So the data, whatever I am speaking or whatever data are there on paper, probably they are at the tip, they are the tip of iceberg only. Actual number of cases may be manifold of that. So as on today, approximately new cases, if you talk, so in 1 year approximately 10 to 11 lakhs new patients of cancer are diagnosed in our country. A rough estimate, 10 to 11 lakhs of new patients are coming to are diagnosed, and that is called incidence of cancer in our country. As far as prevalence of cancer is concerned, so at any given point of time, we have got approximately 25 lakhs of cancer patient in our country. That is again a rough data, and once again I want to tell you, whatever data we have got, they are probably tip of iceberg only, because many cancers are there which are go unreported. People die of cancer, they don't, they ultimately, till date they are not diagnosed. Even if they are diagnosed, they are not reported. They are getting treated, somebody treated by some alternative medicines, somebody treated by, you know, lot of things are there in our country. So they don't go reported. So this is the burden of, and the burden is increasing day by day.
We discussed about how the burden is increasing day by day. Now the question arises, to every problem there is a root cause. And if we talk about the cancer, what are the causes of cancer?
See, if we know the cause, then I think we know the answer also. If we know the question, we know the answer. Considering all the cancers, if I talk the like 100% cancers, so approximately 70 to 80% of cancer we know the cause. These are the causes of these. Every cancer has different causes, but there are some causes which are common to most of the cancers. So if we can like control those causes, then we can definitely control cancers to some extent. Now, causes of cancer, if you talk me worldwide or in our country, the commonest cause of cancer stands the tobacco. Tobacco is the commonest cause of cancer. Tobacco is the commonest cause of other problems also, like cardiac diseases and all. But for cancer, tobacco is the commonest cause. Now, talk of tobacco. The tobacco itself has many forms. Basically, tobacco has two types. It is important to know the types of tobacco, because to understand cancer, you have to understand the types of tobacco. There are two types of tobacco available. One is smoked tobacco. The smoked tobacco is a tobacco which is used in smoking, like cigarettes or bidi. In our country, we have got something. In villages, people have hookah, people have chillam. There are so many ways by which people smoke. So common ways in urban is cigarette and bidi, and nowadays hookahs also. But in villages, more and more people use hookah, they use chillam, they use various pipes and cigars. Lot of ways are there. So there is smoke. So you smoke, and the smoke goes inside your mouth. From mouth it goes to your throat. From throat it goes to your respiratory tract. It goes to your bronchus, or it goes to your lung. At the same time, some smoke will go to your alimentary tract in your esophagus or food pipe, or it goes to stomach and all. So all the organs where this smoke comes directly in contact, they are vulnerable for cancer because of tobacco. And apart from that, the tobacco is absorbed in our body, in our blood, and that will go and strike other organs which are not in direct contact also. Now, the tobacco, if we talk of smoking, so every when we take one smoke, like ek kash jab lete hai, so when we take once, like approximately you have got 500 to 600 chemicals, they go inside with with one cigarette, when you smoke just once, 500 to 600 chemicals goes into it, and approximately 55 to 60 chemicals out of all these chemicals, they are carcinogen. These are the chemicals which causes cancer. There are certain heavy metals which goes in smoke. There is something called tar. Tar is a thing which is made after smoking. It goes inside our body. So the tar, it carcinogen. So a lot of carcinogens are being inhaled while smoking. And other problem smoking is that if you smoke, you are vulnerable to cancer. It doesn't mean that people who do not smoke are not exposed. The people who are standing next to you, the people who are sitting next to you, the people who are close to you, and all the people who are coming, they are getting passive smoking. The passive smoking is equally or rather more dangerous than active smoking, because sometimes the person is using filtered cigarettes and he gets little less, not much, he gets little less of smoke, but the person who is standing near him or sitting near him, he gets the passive smoking and he is not having his filter. So he gets more carcinogens contact than you. So you are harming yourself and you are harming the other person. So this is about smoked tobacco. Other than smoked tobacco, we have got smokeless tobacco. Now smokeless tobacco is very dangerous. Smokeless tobacco is nowadays is more common. Now this program is being watched by many students of our country. It is unfortunate to say that many students in our country, they smoke, and many students of our country, they use smokeless tobacco. The consumption of smokeless tobacco, according to one data, has increased 15 times in last 5 to 6 years. This is a very alarming scene. They are available as gutka, they are available as pan masala, they are available as zarda, they are available as many things. And there have been bans by the government in many states of selling of pan masala or selling of gutkas, but these are practically not functioning because they make different types of arrangements and they find loopholes in the legal system and they are making and selling it. So gutka and the pan masala and suparis and all these brothers and sisters of this, they are smokeless tobacco. The tobacco goes, somebody chew it, somebody keep it under the lip, somebody keep inside the mouth and sleep in the night. Somebody gets up in the night and ask for gutka. Somebody doesn't pass stool in the morning if they don't take gutka. So these are the problems and very common, villages, city, wherever you talk, there are people you will find, you go to cinema hall, you will find people eating gutka. You go to colleges, you will find students eating gutka. So gutka is a big menace. So I think smokeless tobacco is in our country has become now more dangerous than smoked tobacco. So we have to control that. So the tobacco, I was talking about causes of cancer. So I've talked about detail in tobacco. The second is again a bad addiction, that is alcohol. Again, it has got many forms. It is available as whiskey or available as beer, and so many forms are there of alcohol also. So alcohol causes the liver, it causes liver cancer, it causes stomach cancer, it causes throat cancer, it causes oral cancer, and we are surprised to see that a recent study has shown that alcohol also is implicated in causes of breast cancer also, pancreatic cancer also. So alcohol after smoking alcohol is another cause of cancer. Now most of the people who smoke, they also drink. Most of the people who drink, they smoke. So they go hand by hand. So people who are smoking also, who are taking alcohol also, they are doubly prone to develop cancer. So I want to draw the attention of students community through this program that please be aware of this tobacco and alcohol. If anybody is taking alcohol, or if anybody is taking alcohol or cigarettes or smoking or tobacco in any form, please stop it today. I think that is the best message we can give through this program. Other than alcohol, then third cause, because certain infections are there which causes cancer. Infection like viral infection. We have got human papilloma virus which resides in the genital tract or not exactly genital, external genital organs of female and males. So this human papilloma virus is a causative agent for cervical cancer, cervix cancer. It causes cancers of penis also. Human papilloma virus causes cancers of oral cavity and oropharynx also. It causes cancers of vagina also. So it is a virus which causes, it is a carcinogenic virus. Other carcinogenic viruses, hepatitis B virus and hepatitis C virus. This hepatitis B and hepatitis C virus causes liver cancer. And similarly, one bacteria which is known as Helicobacter pylori, the Helicobacter pylori bacterial infection may lead to stomach cancer. So there are certain infections which can be cured, which can be treated, which can be detected, which can be prevented. This infection will lead to cancer. So these are third causes of cancer. And fourth cause of cancer, I'll say, is our lifestyle. Our lifestyle means we have stopped taking fruits, green leafy vegetables. We are more into Western diets. We are more taking pizzas, burgers, fatty meals, sometimes with alcohol and cigarettes and all. So all this, our lifestyle, we have stopped doing exercises. So lack of exercises, lack of taking green leafy vegetables, lack of taking salads, and more taking fatty diets, more and more sedentary life habits. All these things they causes fat retention in our body, and retention of fat will lead to increased estrogen, and they will lead to so many cancers. They will lead to breast cancer. This obesity is a cause of gastroesophageal junction cancer. Obesity also causes endometrial cancer, the cancer of uterus, the body of uterus cancer. So our lifestyle is again important, and there are certain studies which says that about certain like pesticides used in the certain chemicals used in various industry like rubber industries or plastic industries or paint industries. There are certain chemicals. The chemicals which are there in pesticides, they also cause cancers. So these are the common causes of cancer. Apart from this, there are other thousands of causes of cancer, but radiation, like anything radiation, excessive radiation, they again causes cancer. So there are many causes of cancer, but I have told you about the common causes of cancer and the causes of cancer which can be prevented. If we can prevent alcohol, we can prevent use of tobacco, we can prevent infection, we can change our lifestyle. So if these 3 or 4 things, if we can control, if we can do a awareness system in our country that these things can be controlled, then I think 70 to 80% of cancers in our country will be prevented.
Dr. Jain laid some important points which everybody of us should take into concern, because if we don't take them into concern, you know what will happen. After discussing the various causes of the cancer, doctor, please tell us what are the different stages of cancer. Many of times we have heard that the patient reach at the stage when the cancer could not be treated or it could not be prevented. So what are these stages basically?
Look, every cancer has different stages. The stage depends on the extent of the disease, to which extent the disease has grown or have gone. So we can take one example. We can take example of, say, breast cancer. So breast cancer is generally presented as a lump in the breast. So if we measure the size of the lump, and if that lump is 2 centimeter or less than 2 centimeter, we generally call it a stage 1 breast cancer. Similarly, if the size of the lump is more than 2 centimeter, or we have got certain lymph nodes or some certain glands in the axilla. Axilla means armpit. So breast cancer generally spreads first from breast to the axilla or the armpit. So we can feel them, we can image them. So if we see the disease, if the disease from the breast has gone into axilla, it has involved the nodes, then generally for layman's, we call it stage 2. Similarly, if the breast cancer, say it has made an ulcer, the breast cancer has come out of the skin, there is bleeding, there is wound, there is ulceration, there is foul smelling discharge, and you see a bad wound coming, that is locally advanced type of breast cancer, that is stage 3. If this is not treated and it goes to the stage where from breast it has gone to other organs of the body, like it has gone to lungs, or it has gone to liver, or it has gone to bones, or it has gone to brain. So if a cancer originates from one organ and go to distant organ, we call it distant metastasis. And this distant metastasis is termed as stage 4. So basically most of the solid cancers, most of the cancer has 4 stages, depending on the tumor size, depending on the involvement of the adjacent lymph nodes, and also depending on the distant metastasis or the spread of cancer to different organs. So that I have given you example of breast cancer stage 1, 2, 3 and 4. Similarly, other cancer have other type of staging, but general principles of staging is this. So whenever patient comes to our outpatient department or in my clinic, they first comes and ask me, what is the stage of cancer? Actually, they don't know what stage means, but this is a very common question. So I want that people should be aware of the stages, how staging is done, and what is the importance of staging. The most important thing about staging, to know the stage, is that earlier the stage, like stage 1, the better is the prognosis, better is the treatment, less costly is the treatment, and results are very good. If the patient comes late, if the patient comes to late stages, stage 3, stage 4, the chances of cure are minimum. So that is the importance of staging. And if you know the staging, we can decide the plan of treatment also. In early cases, generally we prefer doing surgery. In late cases, we prefer doing chemotherapy. So it depends on the stage what treatment is required. It depends on the stage what will be the expenditure. It depends on a stage what is the life survival of the patient. It depends on a stage what will happen ultimately with the patient. So stage is very important. We should know what is staging.
After knowing more about the stages, as Dr. Jain himself said, that if you talk about the different cancers have the stages, and those stages must be having the time span also. So if you talk about the time span, as you said, because the symptoms shown by the different stages of a particular cancer, can we say that there are time span also with the particular stage?
See, as I told you, we can take the example of breast cancer again. Suppose the patient has stage 1 breast cancer, and if you have done comprehensive treatment of that patient, you have done the requisite surgery, if required you have given chemotherapy, if required you have given radiation, or if required you have given hormone therapy, whatever is the appropriate treatment for stage 1 cancer, if that treatment has been instituted, then it is seen that approximately 95 to 98% of the patient, 95% I will tell to be more conservative, patients survive. They are completely cured. That is stage 1. Similarly, if the patient comes to stage 2 and gets appropriate treatment, complete treatment in a good center, in good hands, then approximately 85 to 90%, or rather 80, 85, 90, in this range percentage of the people survives. If you stage 3, it is approximately 65, 70% of the people, 60, 65, 70% of the people, they survive, or they are cured rather. So if it is a stage 4, like last stage, even in last stage, 15 to 20%, in some cancers 25% of the patient survives. So more the stages, less the chances of survival.
Yes, it was all about the stages, and now we wish you to talk more about or throw light on the diagnosis of the cancer. If we talk about cancer as alone, or when we talk about the different types of cancer, how the diagnosis is done, please tell us more about this.
See, cancer diagnosis is not a straightforward thing that cancer is diagnosed by this test or diagnosed by this examination or this investigation. It's not like this. It depends on which organ it is and what are the symptoms of the patient. So when any patient who is suspected of cancer comes to us, the first and foremost thing we diagnose by taking his complete history. After taking complete history, we get a clue that probably, yes, this is the type of cancer, or this is the likelihood of the disease he is suffering. Then we examine the patient properly. Say, for example, if the patient complains of some problem in the breast, then we examine properly and thoroughly. We see whether the patient has got some lump in the breast, what is the size of the lump, what is the consistency of the lump, whether that lump is mobile or not. Then we examine axilla, we examine other parts of the body. So history and examination, and followed by certain investigations. Now, as a whole, cancer is diagnosed by clinical examination and followed by investigations. In investigations, we generally start investigations by doing certain imaging. Imaging means we do certain X-rays or CT scan or mammogram or ultrasound, depends on the case to case. So imaging is the next way to diagnose the case. Now imaging will most of the time will not tell that it is cancer. They will suggest that probably it may be cancer, that this is the organ which is involved and this is the size of the tumor, these are the associated abnormalities in the neighboring structures, whether they are involved in the blood vessels or not. So by doing CT scan or ultrasound, we get like this. So say for breast cancer, we do a mammogram, which is a simple basically X-ray of, specialized X-ray of breast, and the mammogram will tell the character of the lesion, the character of the lump, and depending on the character they will report probably it looks like cancer. So we do certain imaging, that imaging will suggest more that it is cancer or it is not cancer. It looks like cancer or it doesn't look like cancer, and then the final diagnosis is done by biopsy. Biopsy, again, there is one thing called, which is called FNAC. It is a simple test, OPD basis test, fine needle aspiration cytology. Like say for example breast cancer, you just take a needle, put the needle and take out little sample from the lump, and you examine under microscope. They will see malignant cells. Then they will say that, the pathologist will say it is a breast cancer. So we diagnose it. Many times we have to take a core needle biopsy, that is again a big size needle. We take a better chunk of the tissue and take it's a better scene. Pathologist will report it better. That is one. Another is incision biopsy. We take certain sample by cutting and small pieces from the tumor we take out. Say for oral cancer, we just under local anesthesia we take small sample from the tongue ulcer, or a small sample from our buccal mucosa or cheek ulcer or lip ulcer, and we examine under anesthesia. That is called biopsy. At the sometimes if they're like the lump is very small, we can take out the lump as a whole and then we test it, and that is called histopathology or biopsy. They will tell. So diagnosis of cancer is done by clinical examination, history taking, certain imaging, and certain histopathological tests like FNAC or true cut biopsy, that like core biopsy, or we can do a proper big chunk biopsies. So these are the tests. At the same time, these diagnostic tests are used for staging as well. So if we do a say CT scan of abdomen in any patient of say stomach cancer, then the CT scan will tell whether liver is involved or not, whether other organs in the abdomen is involved. So we can do staging also. So diagnosis and staging sometimes goes simultaneously. We do. That's how we diagnose.
And once the diagnosis is done, the next stage comes that, of course, as a doctor, you suggest the patient with the treatment. What are the treatment and what are the modalities when we deal with the disease such as cancer?
See, cancer is today, if we talk of today, cancer is the treatment of cancer is always multi-modality treatment. Nobody can say that I am a surgeon, I operate and I cure cancer. It's not like this. Most of the cancer in most of the stages are treated with multi-modality approach. All the good hospitals have got a tumor board or a multi-specialty clinics in which all the doctors who are responsible for cancer treatment, they sit together, they decide the plan of treatment, and the treatment is mostly multi-modality treatment. But out of the multi-modality treatment, one treatment modality is the mainstay of treatment. So the one treatment which is the oldest treatment and still today it is the most curative form of treatment is surgery. We call it cancer surgery or oncosurgery. The subject is called surgical oncology, which I am actually. So this surgery is basically removal of the organ in which the cancer is there, or removal of part of that organ along with adjacent lymph nodes or along with some part of adjacent structures, so that we remove the entire cancer tissue from this area. So that is called surgery or surgical oncology. Surgery has been the first treatment of cancer. Surgery is the most curative form of treatment, and till today, if the patient undergoes surgery, then his chances of cure are maximum in certain type of cancer. So this is the surgery. The second type of treatment is radiotherapy, or it called radiation therapy, or radiation oncologists, the people who deals with radiation. There are certain X-rays and gamma rays. There are certain rays which are generated by certain machines. And now from this machine, these rays are generated, and the patient is are exposed to these rays. So when these rays goes inside the body, they will attack the cancer affected area, and they will burn that cell. They will burn the cancer. So that is called radiotherapy. I'll give you a very simple example. You may ask me why we should do surgery. We should do radiation in every case. We should just radiate and that's all. It's not like this. There are certain cancer cells which are sensitive to radiation. In these areas only we can do radiation. There are certain cancers which are located in some important organs, like for example voice box. Cancers of the vocal cord are there. If I as a surgeon, if the patient comes to me with stage 1 or say stage 2 vocal cord cancer or stage 3 vocal cord cancer, I can say that I'll remove the vocal cord, the cancer will go. There's a surgeon, there's surgery, and the cancer will be cured. It's very simple. But you know what will be the result? The result will be that the person will be cured of cancer, but he cannot speak. His voice box is out, his vocal cords are out. So in this situation, we give radiotherapy. It is known that radiotherapy, the cancer of vocal cord are radiosensitive tumor. So when we give radiotherapy, the rays will go, they will kill the vocal cord cancer, the patient will be free of disease, and at the same time he will be speaking. So we can conserve the organ. So that is the advantage of radiation in certain locations. But if you say stomach cancer, we don't remove, we give radiation, no, because stomach cancer is not radiosensitive. We have to do surgery. Breast cancer, we have to do surgery. If it is curative, we have to do surgery. So depending on the organ, depending on the radiosensitivity, depending on the crucial technical things about the cancer, we decide the treatment. So this is about radiotherapy. Then comes chemotherapy. Again, the chemotherapy, the word C for cancer and C for chemotherapy. So chemotherapy and C for complex also. So chemotherapy, people are worried about chemotherapy. They lose their hairs, they have lot of weakness, they have side effects of chemotherapy. These are facts. Chemotherapy, there are certain anti-cancer drugs. These drugs are given in the body through our veins. Sometimes chemotherapy are oral also, but most of the times standard chemotherapy is by using intravenous techniques. So by giving, the drugs will go into the blood circulation, it will circulate in the body and it will kill the cancer cells. But these chemotherapeutic agents, they don't know which is cancer cell and which is normal cell. So they will affect the cancer cells, they will affect the organs involved by cancer. At the same time, they will go to the other cells also, normal cells also, and they will damage the normal cells also. These drugs are made in such a way that they will, why they are anti-cancer drugs? Because these are the drugs which will affect the multiplying cells. The cells which are rapidly multiplying, like cancer cells are rapidly multiplying, so they will go identify rapidly multiplying cells and they will kill. But there are other cells in our body which are normally rapidly multiplying. Say for example, our bone marrow. Bone marrow generates our blood. So they are rapidly multiplying. So this chemotherapy will go and attack bone marrow also. So you will have less of hemoglobin, you will have less of blood cells, less of platelet as a side effect. Our hairs are rapidly multiplying. You see, we cut the hairs, go to salon, cut our hairs. After 15 days again the hairs are grown. So hair are again rapidly multiplying cells, scalp cells, they are multiplying rapidly. So there is loss of hairs because chemotherapy will affect those cells. At the same time, our gastrointestinal tract, when we eat something, there is injury to GI tract. The cells are damaged, but they are so rapidly multiplying, the new cells are immediately formed. And integrity of gastrointestinal tract is maintained. At the same time, we give chemotherapy, then the chemotherapy will affect the gastrointestinal tract, the patient will have diarrhea. So that's the side effects. So this is chemotherapy. One thing I want to tell about cancer treatment is that there is therapy called target therapy. Target therapy is again a chemotherapy only. These are the drugs which are given to kill cancer cells. But these are recent drugs. These drugs are designed in such a way that they will identify the cancer cells, they will kill cancer cell, at the same time they will not attack the normal cells. So the target therapy is a type of chemotherapy which has minimum side effects. So this is a type of chemotherapy. So I have told about surgery, about radiotherapy, about chemotherapy, about target therapy. These are the standard forms of treatment. Apart from this, there are other treatments like hormone therapy. For breast cancer, we give tamoxifen or anastrozole. These are hormone drugs which can be used. These are hormone therapy. We can use hormone therapy for prostate cancer. Anti-testosterone drug we give. So these are hormone therapy for prostate cancer. So there are certain cancers which are hormone sensitive, in which we can give hormone therapy also. Nowadays, one therapy is coming up which is called immunotherapy. So it is by various investigations and research it has been found that when the person has less of immunity, like a patient suffering from AIDS, or a patient who has, because of any reason he has low immunity, he is prone to cancer. Then it was hypothesized that if the immunity of the patient can be brought up, then the active immunity or the enhanced immunity can kill cancer. So immunotherapy has also come up. It is not very successful, but in some cancers like melanoma, which is a type of skin cancers, it has been found successful. In other cancers, the research is on. So immunotherapy is again a type of new therapy. So these are the various therapies or the various ways and means by which we treat cancer.
Sir, it was all about the treatment we talked about. Now the question arises, what do you want to say about the survival rates once the patient is treated? If you talk about the survival rates alone, and if you talk about India alone, so what is your say on this?
See, if you see incidence of cancer, like America and Europe has more incidence of cancer than India. They have more cancer patients, say breast cancer, they have more breast cancer than Indians. They have more prostate cancers than Indian. But Indians die more of cancer than Americans. What is the reason of this? See, the problem is that if you go to Western world, they have got screening programs. They are very much aware of the cancer, which we have started late. Now with your programs or with other programs, we are getting awareness programs. We have to do, like once in a week, I go for awareness program. So people are creating now NGOs for cancer awareness. This awareness has come 50 years back in Western world. So their diagnosis is early stage, our diagnosis is late stage. Say for example, cervical cancer, cervix cancer. Now cervix cancer disease, as I told, is caused by human papilloma virus. The virus goes in the body, it causes certain changes in the cervix. And these changes they keep on doing for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, and then there is cancer. So if in this period of infection, the start of investigation, start of infection and the onset of cancer, we give 10 years, 15 years and we don't get examined. No doctor sees the patient, no screening, nothing. So if doctor examines in between these 10 years once, he will identify that he might develop cancer, then treatment can be done and the process can be stopped. But unfortunately, cervical cancer death in India is highest in all the world. It is called cervical cancer capital, India. And approximately 1 lakh new cancer patients of cervix cancer are diagnosed, and every day 500 patients are dying in our country of cervical cancer. So that's the problem. So our incidence is less, but our death rate is more because we diagnose cancer at a late stage. Our people are not aware. Our people come in the last stage, so we can't cure them. So that's the problem.
And do you feel so that we as Indians have taken cancer to such an extent that once the person is diagnosed with the cancer, the person have tendency to think that now he is going to die. It is all because of the lack of awareness which still we are lacking. Although we are conducting lots of awareness programs, but still if we go to a person in the rural areas and if the person is diagnosed with this particular kind of disease, so there is a general tendency, oh my God, now I'm going to die.
See, the best punchline you should know is that no cancer to say no to cancer. No cancer means K-N-O-W. No cancer. You should know the cancer to say no to cancer. If you know about the cancer, you can prevent cancer. You can get treatment of cancer. So the whole idea of this program is to know about the cancer so that you can say no to cancer. Second point, cancer is not passport to death. I told you already that stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, the survival rates. So after knowing so much about the survival rates, how can you call it the patient? If a patient is diagnosed with stage 1 cancer and get proper treatment, he will survive. He will get cured. How it is passport to death? So we have to spread this message that let us be aware that cancer is curable if it is detected early. Cancer is curable if it is detected early and treated properly. And the whole problem is early detection. So we have to pay more and more emphasis on early detection so that we detect early and cure disease. So we can say it is, so there is a myth if somebody has diagnosed with cancer and he will soon die. So this myth has to be abolished from our society, especially from our Indian society, that cancer is passport to death. You know about cancer, you know how to prevent cancer, you change your lifestyle, you prevent cancer, you do screening for cancer, you do public awareness for the cancer, you prevent cancer. And it's not if you diagnose any cancer early stage, you're going to survive.
Definitely, that's why we say that there is nothing impossible in the world. So more talking about the survival rates, sometimes we have heard from the people, all from those from the families or from the patient himself, that success stories of survivals, you could say that it is a rich man's story. Is it so?
To some extent, not exactly. See, cancer treatment is costly treatment, I know, because you have to undergo sometimes radiation also, chemotherapy also, surgery also. So it is expensive treatment, as I know. But one thing I've told earlier, if you remember, more early the diagnosis, less is the investigation, less is the invasive procedure, less is the amount of expenses. The earliest you diagnose, the minimum is the treatment and minimum is the expenditure. Again the same thing comes, diagnose early. Now as far as expenditure is concerned or rich means concerned, you have got private hospitals which definitely you have to pay, but there are certain government hospitals, there are certain trust hospitals, there are certain hospitals which are providing treatment either free of cost or providing treatment at concessional rate or providing treatment at a very reasonable rate. There are some doctors who are very passionate about getting treatment done of cancer. So we have to basically make newer and newer arrangements for poor people. The government's role of course is of prime importance in such. We have got certain cancer centers in our country, we have got various RCC, regional cancer centers, but it is less than what is required actually. Considering the cancer burden of our country, whatever facility we have got in private sector or government sector, the facility can cater approximately about 20, 30 to 40% of patients only. If everybody in our country has to get proper and best possible treatment, the government too has to do a lot.
Definitely, government has to do a lot, and we are making sincere effort on that line so that we could reach you, we could teach you, we could aware you. Now, sir, here is a question for you again. As you use the term screening of the cancer, what basically screening is?
Yes. See, screening means a person who is absolutely healthy, like you and me, or people who are watching. The absolutely healthy people, if they have no symptoms of cancer, they have no symptom at all, once in a year, if they have to undergo any test to know their status, whether they are having cancer, whether they are having certain changes in their body which may become cancer in future, this is called screening. Screening are certain specified set of investigations and examination which will tell you that this person is having cancer, not having cancer, or prone to cancer. So, for example, mammogram. Mammogram is a screening tool for breast cancer. Generally, breast cancer is diagnosed by patient will come to you as a lump in the breast. But if you do once in a year mammogram of all ladies who are more than 40 years of age, it is recommended that every lady after 40 years of age should undergo one mammogram. Normal ladies, no symptoms, no lump, nothing. So, this is screening. So, you can detect the you can detect breast cancer 2 years before the lump is developed. So before you develop symptom, you can detect the changes in the mammogram that this is cancer or this is going to become cancer, and you get the treatment then and there. This is about, say, other example I am telling you, very simple and very common and effective is pap smear, papanicular staining or pap smear. Most of you probably know about pap smear. A small amount of fluid is taken from the cervix, that is lower part of uterus, and that is stained with papanicular stain, and the slide is seen under microscope. It is a very simple, painless investigation, takes 1 minute, 1.5 minutes. If even in private hospital it costs 400, 500, 600 rupees maximum, in government hospital or in trust hospital it costs nothing. And this test, pap smear it is called, this pap smear test will detect cancer or pre-cancer instantly. Even if the lady doesn't have any symptom, the pap smear will detect that this is a lady who has got certain pre-cancerous changes, treat those, or this lady has got cancer, then we do image and find that it is early stage and we treat it. So pap smear is another modality of screening for cervical cancer. Similarly, a simple test, PSA, this is prostate specific antigen. This is a simple blood test. After the age of 50 or after the age of 60, every male, if do this test, we can just get the report in 3 hours or 6 hours or 10 hours about the serum PSA. This is simple blood test. So if the PSA is more than 4, then we start investigating and see whether the patient has got cancer or not. So that is how these are certain simple tests which should be done once in a year in normal population without any symptom to detect cancer or to detect pre-cancerous changes. So that a very simple thing about India, I am telling you that oral cancer. Oral cancer is most easily accessible cancer, because if you open the mouth and just throw a torch, then you can see certain changes in the, especially those people who take jarda, who take gutka, who take pan, who take supari or smokes. what you have to do is that you just go to your doctor, you will open your mouth, doctor will see you under a torch and say you have got white patches or leukoplakia, which may become cancer, so get it treated. Or you have got an ulcer, which may be cancer, get it biopsied. You have got a lesion, you have got a mass, which can be probably cancer, get biopsy. So even simple, you just go to doctor, open your mouth, he will put a torch and see. This is simplest possible screening way of screening oral cavity. We organize lot of camps in various places of our country. The people come, we do pap smear, we do oral examinations, so important. Open the mouth and say if there is any changes, we treat it. So screening are basically certain set of investigations which are usually done once in a year to detect cancers in a patient who are not symptomatic.
Definitely, this was all the tips for the healthy people also, or all those who have in some way their mind inclination or thought that they could be affected from such disease. So now the question arises, do the survivors also go for the regular checkups and the screenings? Could it happen that person who has caught by cancer once can be caught again and again?
Yeah, you have asked me a very important question. What you are asking is called follow-up. A person who has developed cancer, a person who has undergone treatment of cancer, a person who is cured of cancer, there is always a chance of reoccurrence. We call it recurrence. So recurrences are there. Recurrence depends on how early the stage was at the time of diagnosis. Earliest the disease is diagnosed and treated, the minimum is the chance of recurrence. Now follow-up, there are certain guidelines for follow-up. We follow strictly the guidelines. And what we do after finishing the treatment of cancer, we give patient their throughout their life program. That say for breast cancer, after finishing the treatment, we call them every 3 months that you please come for checkup every 3 months for the first 3 years. After 3 years, we call them every 6 months for the 4th and 5th year. And after 5 years, we call them once in a year throughout their life. So when they come regularly to doctor, that is called follow-up of cured patients, follow-up of treated patients. In follow-up, what we are supposed to do? In follow-up, number one, we have to exclude recurrence. We have to see whether there is recurrence or not at the local site or regional site or at a distant site. So we do clinical examination of the patient, we see whether the operated area is okay, whether the neighboring areas is okay, whether other organs are okay, we examine thoroughly during follow-up. And there are certain guidelines by which we advise certain tests also. Like after finishing treatment, we advise mammography once in a year of opposite breast. Suppose one breast has been removed by surgery for cancer, the other breast is prone. So once in a year after treatment, we do mammogram of the contralateral or the opposite breast. So similarly, after finishing prostate cancer treatment, we do PSA test routinely at a frequent, at specified intervals. So these are certain follow-up programs which are well defined, very nicely framed programs we give to patient. They come for clinical examination, and time to time we do investigations also to detect recurrences. So even if you detect recurrence, if the recurrence is detected early, then they again treated and again cured. So early diagnosis of recurrence usually translates into early cure again. So that is follow-up.
That is very true. That is, you have to fight for your survival and survival till you are on the earth. Now question arises, what is genetic predisposition of cancer? We have heard about this many times, but we are unaware. So it would be very healthy for us if you would please tell us what this is.
See, basically the genetic predisposition of cancer is a well documented and established term. There are certain cancers which are genetically predisposed. There are certain genetic syndromes in which the cancer occurs. Generally, about 10%, 8 to 10% of cancers are hereditary cancers, not all cancers. 8 to 10% cancers are hereditary cancers. They run in families. So if you find a patient who has got history of cancer in their relatives, especially first degree relatives, sometimes patient comes says that my mother had cancer, my mausi had cancer, my bua had cancer, my sister had cancer. So these are the cases which are actually genetically predisposed. So in these cases we do genetic counseling, we talk to their family members, we do certain tests. For example, breast cancer, we have got some test which is called HER2, these are tests like BRCA1 and BRCA2, these are genetic testing. So we do genetic testing among the family members, other family members who are not affected, and if we find abnormality in those genes, then we follow the patient very strict, the other relatives also very strictly, that they are likely to have cancer. So any patient who has cancer, the relatives are prone to cancer, and any patient who has got more number of relatives suffer from cancer, they are more and more prone to have cancers. There are certain syndromes like there is one condition called HNPCC, hereditary non-polyposis cancer syndrome. So these are the people who are prone for colon and rectum cancers. They are prone to this if they suffer from this syndrome. So there are certain syndromes which are not very common, but the syndromes are there, the genetic predisposition is there, genetic defect is there for that, like retinoblastoma is a cancer of the eye, so it is again genetically predisposed. So it occurs in a very small babies, infants, and they are genetically predisposed. The retinoblastoma gene we have to examine. So certain 8-10% patients are genetically predisposed.
Now, sir, as we have very less time left with us, there is a question in my mind that sometimes some people are prone to certain kind of infection, and those infections emerges or occur from time to time, and by taking medicine the person get healed up. Now the question arises, does person should take this thing seriously into account, or should he consult to doctor, or should go for the checkups further? May it result into further cancers?
See, all the infection doesn't lead to cancer. I've given you example of hepatitis virus, I've given you example of human papillomavirus, I've given you example of Helicobacter pylori bacteria, I've given example of AIDS virus. These are situations where these are oncogenic virus, they causes cancer. But yes, a person who is getting repeated infections, time and again infection, one thing is sure, that this person has got less immunity. Even after getting treatment time and again, he is getting recurrent infections, so his immunity is less. And any person who is having less immunity is prone to any disease. Similarly, he is prone to cancer also. So that is, he should take it seriously, that how he is, why he is getting infection, and he should get examined properly and get investigated. But repeated infection will lead to cancer is not a norm.
Is not a norm, but a person has to check for his immunity. That is, he or she should take a good diet so that he or she can fight against the diseases. Now, last but not the least question, what should be the role of every individual, or if we would say the NGOs or the government, on awareing the masses that how we should fight against this particular disease?
I told you earlier that know the cancer to say no to cancer. So you have to make more and more people aware about cancer. You have to ask people, you have to address people, you have to organize certain programs. See, everybody has responsibility. As an individual, I have responsibility. As an individual, you have got responsibility. But as an organization, the government has responsibility. As an NGO, they have got responsibility. There are so many ways by which we can spread awareness about cancer. It's prevention, it's screening, it's treatment, and myths about the cancer has to be cleaned. So, what government can do? Government can do a lot of things about awareness, about treatment. About awareness, the government can have various programs like this program. They can have, they have got information and broadcasting ministry with them. They can have programs on radio. They can programs on television. They can spread the message through various other methods the government has got. And various banners the government can put. They can put a lot of hoardings. They can have special chapters on cancer in our school. Like in school children or in college going children, there is no chapter on cancer. It's a deadly disease. The people, at least students, should know a little bit about cancer. There should be programs by resource persons like us in various colleges or universities or schools. So the people who are students, at least they know about cancer. So they are the future citizens of the country. They should know about. You should have tobacco awareness program. Lot of programs can be done. You have got Nukkad Natak, you have got Run Against Cancer, you can involve a lot of celebrities for cancer. A lot of celebrities themselves have suffered from cancer. So they will be happy to participate in any program.
Definitely, sir. Everybody would be happy to participate in the program. So let's each one teach one, and we should carry out a campaign so that we could predict a healthy India. Thank you, Dr. Rajesh Jain. Thank you so very much for being with us, and I hope that we could conduct future lectures through which we would invite you and make the people aware. Thank you very much, sir.